Kamen Rider Wiki.
Hey YouTube, Dawson Rider here. Welcome to my review for Kamen Rider Zero-One Episode 4. I thought this was another very solid episode. I'm still very much enjoying Zero-One. It makes me kind of nervous though, because I feel like any minute now the quality is going to drop, because I'm just kind of used to the way Geo was, and it's like, wait, I've been enjoying this 4 episodes, what's gonna go wrong? But overall, I've been enjoying it. I think they've been doing a pretty good job at the general pacing and world building. Like, it's not perfect, I still have my nitpicks, but I've been pretty impressed with the way they've been handling it so far. So this episode, we had several things going on. I mean, we had the debut of the Flying Falcon form and the Punching Kong form. In fact, that's one of my only complaints, is that I wish they would slow down on the forms. It's not like it's a huge deal, because it's not like the forms in this didn't fit, or they didn't really interrupt the plot or feel like it was a huge deal, but it's definitely one of those moments where you can feel the toy business churning, and it mainly just because I don't understand Japan's thinking on this, like, well, we have to get it all on screen because the kids won't want to buy it if they don't see it on screen. I'm like, yeah, but they'll see it eventually. Like, just release the toy, and then, I don't know, I could go on rants about that all the time, and I think that holds Toku back storytelling-wise when they, for whatever frickin' reason, have to line up the debut for everything with it in the show. Like, I could maybe understand it was something big, like a Rider debut, but for a stupid one-off gimmick, like, I don't care, why don't you just release it before or after? It's not a big deal. I think it's just because I'm used to it here in the US, where when movies or TV shows will launch, we'll usually get the toys, if it's a big enough property, months in advance, so it like builds that pre-hype, and like we don't have to wait until it's on screen to buy it. So that kind of annoys me, and also there's always that weird time at the beginning of the Toku season where they have to dump everything. For some reason, that's like the biggest volume of stuff we get. I mean, obviously there's the beginning starter stuff, that makes sense, but we always dump all these forms and stuff, and then there's like huge droughts, and then we never use them, and I don't know why they don't want to stagger it so that they have more for the show and more stuff on shelves more often. I don't know. That was just like a 2-minute rant at the beginning, but like I said, it's not really a huge deal for the show. I just think it would be nicer, and it could save stuff. So like this episode, maybe we do Kong and then Falcon the next episode. Speaking of, I was kind of surprised, I didn't even think about this so much till recently, but that we got Shark first instead of Falcon, given that Falcon was like the preview key we got earlier before the Zero-One stuff came out. And I still do like the way they debut in terms of they analyze a creature that they're going to be fighting, like, okay, this one's flying, so we got to make a flying one. I like the way the form looks, it was cool, there's some cool aerial battles, I like all that stuff. I think it would be cool later on when, like, obviously we won't have forms for every single episode. Like, if later on they face another enemy and they're like, okay, so the machine says we should use this form that already exists, I think that would be a cool way of showing that it doesn't always need to make a new key. Like, we might have a form that will fit this situation. I liked Kong's debut too. Like, I think both suits looked really good. It was absolutely hilarious to see him wielding the shot riser with his giant gloves. Like, it was so much too for like the finisher too. He's like, pew pew pew. I liked that debut, and I liked the way that Valkyrie gave him the key to go in for like extra protection. But I didn't like that. Why did she leave it locked? Like, I was already thinking last episode, like, I really hope that they just unlock the wolf key, because I'm tired of seeing that fake, like, oh, this is so hard to open, even though it's clearly already starting to open. And then at the beginning of the episode, it was open. I'm like, okay, I finally unlocked it. And then the gorilla one was locked. Why would she give that to him? Like, they obviously seem okay with him being Vulcan now. She wants him to be protected, give him a new powerful progress key. Why is it locked? Like, it's only 4 episodes, I'm already sick of that, so, like, I get it, that sometimes can be like a little character thing that's like his thing, but I'm just kind of sick of it because it seems needless at this point. Again, kind of a nitpick, but other than that, I like the way it debuted. Both of them have like a cool look to them, but also had cool fights and finishers, which I enjoyed. And I guess it didn't take too much away from it, I just wish they would stagger it out. Like, I think this episode could have been fine if we had done Kong and then held off on Flying Falcon, or vice versa. Like, I don't think it would have taken away from the plot, because even though there was like good reasoning given to why they each got the form, it didn't really add to what the main plot was. Speaking of, the main plot was kind of driven by a similar vehicle of last week's, where it started off by Aruto visiting a human gear that they have in the field, which I actually kind of like that as a device for the plot of the week. It's kind of a cool twist on the, you know, the villain of the week or the human of the week plot we have with Rider, and I like that we're not forcing 2-parters too. I do kind of hope they stagger that though, so it doesn't get too repetitive. So like maybe you have a week or two where you do a different episode, but then, you know, you can go back to an episode where he's checking in on one. And it did end up being different in my opinion than last week's, but I do like the setup for that. But basically they're touring the Daybreak site, and the whole plot becomes like, you know, what we talked about early on of like, oh, the human gears caused it, and Vulcan actually takes the kid in from the bus whose father was apparently to blame for this incident, so that they can go into the city and find out what's happening. Speaking of, side note, I never understand those plots where a family member is blamed for, like, their other family member's sins if they had nothing to do with it. Like, maybe in certain situations where it's, like, really direct and personal and someone's clearly just, like, psychologically placing the blame. But in general, like, this kid's being hated on for something his dad did. I'm like, he doesn't even go here. Like, he has nothing to do with it. I never understood that. Like, why? You know, just because you're related to him doesn't mean you're associated with what they did. Like, I've always thought that was a stupid plot line. But basically, he's ridiculed for that, so he wants answers about whether his dad really caused it, and Vulcan obviously wants answers in general, so they go in and try to figure things out, and I like that proactiveness. I thought it was kind of funny that he was, like, looking for answers, and he couldn't find them. He's like, maybe my dad really did do it. And then Vulcan's like, don't give up, and he's like, you're right. And then he turned over a rock and literally found it. I'm like, okay. They found a memory chip of, I think it was a human gear, or a recording of a human gear or whatever, that showed that the human gears were going crazy and his dad actually attempted to save everything. And it showed a recording of, I think it was Kamen Rider Jin, one of the evil, it was either Jin or Hero. The recording of obviously these same villains that are causing the current problems caused that. And then it wound up exploding at the end. But there was also an evolution of Aruto as a CEO, because a lot of this episode's plot for him had to deal with his transparency with the public, and so he actually, even though the recording was destroyed, he released a statement telling everybody what happened, that actually this dude wasn't responsible, it was a human gear hacking, and he tried to save it. And his identity is not out to the public, but he did transform into Zero-One in front of Vulcan in order to sort of prove to him that he wants to be more transparent about things and he's not trying to hide things, even though the company's called Hidden. I do kind of like secret identities sometimes, but I thought it was a nice beat for the evolution of his character, and I wouldn't be surprised if pretty soon that everybody in the city knows that it's him, which would create an interesting dynamic. But I thought that was nice for Aruto. Like, I actually like him so far. I'm really happy that they haven't done too much of the screaming in your face humor, and he's been a little bit more balanced, and already you can start to see him evolve a little bit. And I like that he reacts to situations on more of a case-by-case basis, meaning, like, he still has his beliefs, but he's not one of those Toku characters like Entaro or like Gio, where no matter what situation they're presented with, they just shout the same dialogue, and so it's like they're not even taking in the differences in the situation. And so I think I don't want to jinx it, because, you know, they could end up ruining it because I just said that. But so far, I like him. Same thing with Vulcan. I mean, he's still a little bit, you know, single-minded, but he doesn't seem 100% closed-minded, and I kind of liked the dynamic with them at the end, where him clearly acknowledging that he was appreciative of Aruto's honesty. And it's kind of a funny dynamic, too, that he's the only one that finds the jokes funny. But yeah, overall, I thought this was another strong episode. You know, we got some cool debuts, even though I wish they'd slow down a little bit. And I think they're doing a really good job of keeping the momentum of the plot going, even amongst, like, sort of fillery episodes. It's not really a filler episode, but you know what I mean. Like, they're doing a good job of stringing the plot throughout, and I hope that continues. Like, good pacing of, like, steady reveals where we're finding out little bits. It doesn't feel like information is being kept from us too much, and, like, we evolve with more mysteries. So overall, I'd give this episode an 8. Until next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and of course, don't forget to climb the steps and ring that bell so you can get notifications from my videos. Till next time, Kamen Rider, signing out.